Harry and Meghan Markle's surrogacy scandal has entered the mainstream media domain.
It sounds fake.
Harry and Meghan Markle's pregnancy narrative has always been a subject of fascination, but when Candace Owens stepped into the conversation, the entire story shifted into an even more controversial light. The couple has often portrayed the birth of Archie as a moment of defiance against the rigid traditions of the royal family, but Owens and other critics argue that the story doesn't hold up under scrutiny. The contradictions aren't just small oversights, they're glaring inconsistencies that raise questions about what really happened behind closed doors. If the details around Archie's birth and Meghan's pregnancy don't add up, then it's only natural for the public to wonder what else may have been carefully curated for image rather than truth. Candace Owens has never been one to shy away from controversy, and when she called out Meghan's pregnancy timeline, she did it with precision. She wasn't vague about her concerns. She pointed to what she considered glaring flaws in the narrative that Meghan and Harry have repeatedly presented. The fact that Meghan has provided multiple versions of why the press wasn't informed about Archie's birth right away is one of the biggest red flags for many critics. When one version says it was about privacy, another claims it was due to complications, and yet another gives an entirely different explanation, people start asking why the story keeps shifting. If everything was straightforward, why not just stick with one consistent version? These discrepancies are exactly what fuel suspicion, and Owens has tapped into that doubt with force. Harry's own memoir, Spare, has only deepened the mystery. Instead of clearing up the confusion, it added more layers to it. He described Meghan going through not one, but 2 epidurals during labor, a claim that raised eyebrows across the medical community. Doctors and nurses who have read the account insist that the idea of switching epidurals mid-labor isn't just rare, it's extremely risky and unnecessary. If Harry misunderstood medical terminology, that might explain it, but if he didn't, then the story itself doesn't align with standard medical practice. The fact that Meghan supposedly received this treatment and was still discharged from the hospital just hours later only amplifies the skepticism. Medical professionals point out that even in uncomplicated births, mothers are generally monitored for at least 24 hours. Yet according to Harry's account, Meghan left the hospital and made the lengthy trip back to Frogmore Cottage in record time. That's not just unusual, it borders on implausible. Then there's the matter of Portland Hospital itself. The memoir describes a secretive, dramatic environment filled with discreet back doors and even a so-called hidden elevator that helped Meghan and Harry maintain privacy. But staff insiders have quietly contradicted that picture, saying there was nothing like the hidden escape route Harry described. The hospital is high-end, yes, and it does provide private corridors for wealthy clients. But there's no evidence of the dramatic infrastructure painted in the memoir. Even details about the couple ordering extravagant late-night food during labor have been disputed, with insiders saying Meghan's cravings didn't line up with what the hospital actually served. These might sound like minor contradictions, but when pieced together, they suggest a story carefully shaped for the public eye rather than an accurate account of events. The secrecy surrounding the birth announcement only poured gasoline on the fire. Royal tradition is clear. When a baby is born, the Queen is informed first, an official announcement is prepared, and the press is quickly notified. Yet in Archie's case, confusion reigned. Reporters were given conflicting timelines about when the labor began and when the baby had been born. Some were told Meghan was still in labor at the very moment others were informed Archie had already arrived. Meghan herself provided different explanations in interviews over time, shifting between privacy concerns, medical complications, and other reasons. For many observers, this was more than just a breach of tradition. It was a deliberate attempt to keep the details murky, and in an era where every royal move is scrutinized, murkiness breeds suspicion. Candace Owens seized on this confusion and used it as fuel to challenge Meghan's credibility. Her frustration wasn't only about inconsistencies, it was about the perception that Meghan was trying to craft a story that placed her at the center as a symbol of strength and uniqueness, while bending facts in the process. Owens argued that the way Meghan presented her pregnancies made her appear self-centered rather than relatable, as if the narrative was less about reality and more about performance. This idea of performance has become a recurring critique, with some even suggesting Meghan frames her experiences as dramatic showcases to enhance her public image. That perception has only grown as more inconsistencies have been highlighted by critics and medical professionals alike. What makes this controversy even more significant is the way it impacts public trust. For millions of people around the world, Archie's birth was celebrated as a joyous event, a moment where tradition met modernity. But if the story doesn't line up, then those same supporters may feel betrayed. The public doesn't take kindly to feeling misled, especially when it comes to something as monumental as a royal birth. Once doubt is seated, it's incredibly hard to erase, and every subsequent contradiction only makes it worse. Owens tapped into this erosion of trust and amplified it, pointing out that when the details collapse under scrutiny, it doesn't just raise questions about one moment, it undermines the entire narrative Meghan and Harry have built around their family life. The implications extend beyond Meghan and Harry themselves. Buckingham Palace has faced pressure to address the controversy, with some even suggesting that Archie and Lilibet should not remain in the royal line of succession until absolute proof of their births under Meghan's care is provided. While such a drastic step is unlikely, the fact that these discussions are even happening highlights just how deep the skepticism runs. In a monarchy built on tradition, continuity, and public trust, any doubt about lineage becomes a direct threat to credibility. For Meghan and Harry, who have already distanced themselves from the core institution, this scandal adds yet another layer of tension between them and the public they once inspired. One of the strangest aspects of the controversy is the disconnect between Meghan's advocacy for maternal health and the story she's told about her own experience. Meghan has spoken passionately about the importance of proper monitoring and care for mothers, often highlighting how critical it is to prioritize safety and recovery. Yet the timeline Harry described in his memoir directly contradicts those principles. If Meghan truly experienced complications such as preeclampsia, as she has suggested, being discharged so quickly would have been not only reckless, but dangerous. Medical experts point out that women with preeclampsia are usually kept under observation for extended periods due to the risks involved. So the story presented doesn't just raise suspicion, it undermines the very causes Meghan claims to champion. Hospital insiders haven't been the only ones adding to the speculation. Media professionals and royal reporters who were used to the well-oiled machine of royal announcements have admitted that the confusion around Archie's birth was unlike anything they had seen before. They've described the conflicting information as chaotic, even careless, which stands in stark contrast to the palace's usual precision. This chaos, whether intentional or accidental, gave skeptics exactly what they needed to push the narrative of secrecy and deception. And Candace Owens has been relentless in making sure those contradictions remain front and center in the conversation. At the heart of the matter is a fundamental question: why lie or even exaggerate about something so personal? Some argue it was about control. Meghan and Harry wanted to handle the birth on their terms rather than being dictated to by palace tradition. Others suggest it was a way to build sympathy, portraying Meghan as a woman enduring extraordinary challenges while fighting for her autonomy. And there are those who believe the secrecy wasn't about Meghan at all, but about protecting the monarchy from some uncomfortable truth. Whatever the reason, the effect has been the same. The more inconsistencies pile up, the more trust evaporates. Owens has been clear about her stance. The inconsistencies in Meghan's pregnancy story aren't just minor details, they're evidence of a larger pattern of manipulation. Whether or not people agree with her, her commentary has amplified doubts that were already simmering. And the truth is, once a story begins to unravel, every detail, no matter how small, becomes part of the larger puzzle. The royal couple may have intended to protect their privacy or control their narrative, but the unintended consequence has been a flood of suspicion and speculation. In the end, Meghan Markle's pregnancy story is no longer just about a royal birth. It's become a symbol of the tension between image and reality, between carefully crafted narratives and the messy truth that often lies beneath. Candace Owens didn't create the doubts, but she gave them a louder voice, pushing the inconsistencies into the spotlight for the world to see. Whether Meghan's account was simply miscommunicated, misunderstood, or something more deliberate, the fact remains that the public isn't convinced. And once public trust is shattered, it's nearly impossible to repair. This saga leaves Meghan and Harry in a precarious position. For supporters, the couple remains a symbol of independence and resilience. But for critics, the cracks in their stories are evidence of deeper dishonesty. What's undeniable is that every new revelation, every conflicting timeline, and every unanswered question only fuels the fire further. Meghan may have hoped to control her story, but the contradictions have created a narrative that feels increasingly beyond her control, and as long as voices like Candace Owens keep the spotlight on these inconsistencies, the controversy won't be fading anytime soon. At this point, the question isn't just about whether Meghan and Harry told the truth about Archie's birth, it's about what this means for their credibility in the long run. Every public figure relies on trust, but for royals, trust is everything. Their entire influence depends on the belief that they embody stability, authenticity, and continuity. When that foundation is cracked by confusion, secrecy, or contradictions, the image they've worked so hard to maintain begins to crumble, and Meghan, who has positioned herself as a voice of empowerment and truth, risks losing the very credibility that underpins her public platform. What's perhaps most striking is how this controversy refuses to fade away. Years after Archie's birth, people are still dissecting timelines, hospital records, and memoir passages because the inconsistencies were never resolved. Instead of closing the chapter, the secrecy only made it more compelling for critics and commentators. And with outspoken figures like Candace Owens continuing to spotlight the contradictions, the issue lingers like a shadow over Meghan and Harry's legacy. Until clear, consistent answers are given, speculation will remain, and that speculation may very well define how their story is remembered for decades to come.